Hi, everybody. I love those words. Recording in progress. Welcome to Conversation with Calvin, We the Species. Uh, and what? By the way, chronologically, uh, this is Black Friday, and I've been looking forward to this particular interview with Joseph Reyna, i.e., Joseph Catt. Joe
Joking.
Catt with three T's, for a long time because I was a guest on Joe Catt's podcast, More Than Rich, which we're going to talk about. And here's the logo for that, More Than Rich, and of course he's wearing a More Than Rich hat. And I had done it was, we didn't talk about this. We just spent like 40 minutes BSing before we went on air here, just BSing. And it's great because we could probably do a 4 or 5 hour interview right now, easy, which we won't. It's so interesting. Joe had met me and invited me to be a guest uh, on his podcast, which I was a couple of months ago. And you can find the link to the podcast that I did with Joe. It'll be in this channel promo that I do. But he had done such an extensive the amount of research he had done, and he kind of nailed me. Nobody's ever nailed me like you nailed me when we did that interview, which I'm paying you a high compliment because I didn't know all that stuff was out there that you had put together. And of course, the quid pro quo was Joe does this great interview with me, and the quid pro quo is I'm going to come back, and today's the day. Black Friday, we were talking about football and food and Thanksgiving yesterday, and here we are. And of course, chronologically, this will probably pop up in a week or so. Uh, in trying to come up with some descriptive words to describe Joe, he's an enigma, and I don't use that. I don't use that word often because there's not a lot of enigmas floating around. But Joe's involved in so many different things of worth and importance on local and even global type things. And he's provocative and fascinating and accomplished. And what a life's journey that he and he's a young guy. We're at opposite ends of the age thing, but just so importantly involved in life and so many important issues. And one of the things he does with student food insecurity, things that you never even dream of that exists. And he's so involved in all of that. And we're going to talk about all of that. So this is really uh, a very special, important, substantive interview for folks. So hang on and enjoy. And I'm done now. I call this my Johnny Carson monologue. There was nothing funny about this, although Joe's a funny guy too. So my monologue is over. Let's jump in and officially introducing Joe Catt with three T's, Joseph Reyna, parenthesis. So take it away. Do a little intro, a little bio, and then we'll start talking about some important stuff.
Glad to be here. First of all, thanks for having me. Great introduction. Haven't heard myself described as an enigma, but I guess I start to feel like that as life goes on anyway. Um, it's just hard to find people that kind of relate to what I do, let alone involved in the things that I'm interested in, right? So urban development is kind of an easier way to say deeply involved in my community and trying to change it from the inside out because it can mean anything. Anybody can contact me with what they want to build, some kind of dream idea. And basically, I try to conceptualize what you want, tailor it to the city, your solution, try to find partners for you or funding if that's possible, and creatively come up with financing solutions as well, because obviously that's everyone's problem. And as an artist, obviously I can relate to that because most people, most creatives don't have money for their dreams or whatever they're trying to pursue. But I started with winning talent shows as a kid in elementary, which is kind of weird. Like you wouldn't think that I would just go from dancing on stage to urban development, but it was kind of my early introduction to understanding that I can influence people or that they cared if I can like entertain them. But it's kind of interesting because I don't think I was necessarily the most talented. I think I was just bold and brave enough to do something because no one was dancing to like a boy band in second grade, right? For example. And it just looking back at it, it's like I'm still super introverted. Like I still don't like being in front of people or being in front of crowds or any of that stuff. So imagine being so young and being forced to get out of your comfort zone. I've been doing that like my whole life. I think that's pretty important and foundational for like character development and being able to like take risks later. But that was such a young age. Just think, oh, getting a text. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's kind of my little intro. So
Okay.
I guess I'll go on to say I moved after graduating high school to Corpus Christi and I studied sound recording technology. And that was a huge, huge moment for me because I was super into music and I thought that it would be easy to just get a degree because you're interested in the subject that you are passionate about. But reading music is super hard. People underestimate musicians just for the fact that they have to learn another language. Reading music is not easy. So, training myself, training my own ear, and being a natural, I ended up excelling in like vocal training, classical training, singing in other languages, Italian, stuff like that. And then the legal aspects of the music industry, like learning publishing, mastering, things like that, how it actually works, contracts, that was mind blowing. And my professor was like super into Tom Petty. And Tom Petty's story is like very, very fascinating because you couldn't just, well, nowadays, you can't just go across the country and go get a record deal and walk into a like that's not realistic anymore. But back in the day, like I'm getting at, like people were really taking chances and risks because they knew that it was possible. And now the industry, it's not that it's not possible, but it's just heavily guarded and gate kept more than ever. We're at a real precipice though, or tipping point where I'm kind of hoping that things are going to change for the better, but we'll see, especially with like recent lawsuits and things coming out. But um, yeah, the industry has to evolve and it has to change. And I think that the actual creative industry suppressing art and talent for so long actually stifles innovation, like whether it's in the economy or world inventions, for example. There's just a lot of incentive to keep things the way that they are when people are making money. And that's my introduction. I think it's kind of made a vendetta against how I feel about money. I've never liked money my entire life. I hate looking at my bank account. I've never done that. Like, I think all of my root depression in my life has been because of money, if I'm being honest with you. So, yeah. And last thing I'll say about that is I was a very bad person in high school. Like I let it shape my opinions and the things that I did because I needed that and I put it for first and foremost. And you get older and you realize, well, you actually need it to survive. So it can really change your character and like who you are. So last thing I'll say is that I was lucky to get into learning how to DJ at one point because that was where I could actually make money with my creative abilities. That was around 2016 where
Okay.
that transition started to happen after college. But I'm back in college now at Austin Community College studying government and web development. I might shift into like finance or nonprofit soon, but I just don't think that the future is going to be all about developers the way they think it is because AI is really coming in to take care of
Well,
that. I
we're
think,
gonna talk about that in a separate little thing. We have
yeah,
a lot of AI stuff to talk about. So you went and you kind of hinted at some of the stuff. So you went from being a viral music artist to thoughts and to journeys into urban development and community driven projects and stuff. Just a little couple words about that. Uh,
yeah. I kind of had
a disparate journey to go from this to that. And it's not as if you're 80 years old here, where you have time you're a young guy and you went in such a different direction, which is so admirable.
this is this is the part where I'm talking about like service to others, because this comes into money also, where I got so depressed at one point because all of my issues and all of my problems were all being caused by this not having of money, or this lack of. And I can just remember like a specific moment going into like a really pivotal meditation. And it sounds corny, right? I think when I say stories like this, people can't relate to them and they want to relate to them. But I don't want to label it as like a Kundalini experience, but it was a life changing, profound meditation where you could say like the hand of God or some energy, whatever came over me. And it was just profoundly leaving in waves, just leaving my body as if like I'm at my lowest and don't want to exist anymore. Something comes over me. And like it was this feeling of whatever I'm doing doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be enough. And that was where I really changed my mindset of service to others. And how do I fix the problems? I'm already having my own issues. Well, how do I tie it into what I'm working on? And that goes actually into the nonprofit founding as well. That ties into the housing concepts that I came up with, because I'm going outside and I'm playing basketball with kids every day and they're knocking on my door like, come play, I want to play. And I'm the type of person I'd rather be invited to stuff. I don't want to be told what to do. So it was kind of getting on my nerves a little bit because I have a life, I have work and stuff. So I needed an incentive. I want to work out with you guys. I do want to film you guys. So, I'll make a nonprofit. I'll train the students and I can potentially get them funding. I'll write grants. This is around the time that AI comes out and I start learning how to write grants, and I'm using AI, and I'm probably one of the first people to successfully get money with grants using AI. I would not doubt it.
Wow.
And on top of that,
Wow.
just yeah, getting into the housing aspect, I had started to get into a lawsuit with my apartment complex because they left me without water for a week and they denied all wrongdoing. They accommodated everyone around me, but they didn't care about me. They just left me without water for so got in this little lawsuit. Of course, they denied it, but that caused me to work on my affordable housing project because I didn't have a place to go. And I was so upset because they just wouldn't accommodate me. I'm like, you're not going to at least give me a discount? You're just going to deny all of this? So that turned into a huge legal thing, and it's a whole nother story. It's a giant corporation we all know and very well, but um, that just sparked the ZenBox project of okay, how do we accommodate a lot of people? Because cities are spending hundreds of millions of dollars for 100 people, for a couple hundred people. So my prototype, ZenBox, which is a Japanese capsule hotel designed off the Finland um, housing first model and perfected from the California model where they were not reintegrating people back into society, because California copied their model, but they didn't perfect it. So my idea was people are questioning, how are you going to do this? You can't just put 400 or 500 people all together. And my solution and my argument is it's not about condensely populated people. The issue is actually isolation, people being alone and not thinking they have any resources. The community that I'm trying to build has everything all in one, whether it's the reintegration services, the community aspect, the cafeteria. You don't even have to leave. You can get job training here as well. And that's the point, that we don't even focus on our most vulnerable populations. There's thousands of homeless people. The veterans are homeless. The women that are trying to escape abuse have nowhere to go. And they shouldn't even have to like find a place to go. That's already messed up in itself. Kids are collateral, of course. So my point is we don't even prioritize the people who need it the most. And housing is already an issue in itself. It's already exacerbated. Wages haven't kept up in I don't know how many years. So my point being, my prototype under 10 million, I want to accommodate 400 to 500 people, which I believe is completely possible. And I've spoken with very, very accomplished architectural firms who are willing to do the design and they believe in the project. But their concern is that the city's pushed back with gentrification because of projects like this in the past. So here I am having to think of how do I console the public and convince them no, or it's not going to feel like a prison. We understand all these complex issues. And that's where my partner, THSU, Texas Health Science University, this is a huge endorsement, by the way. They are the oldest school in Texas that does Eastern medicine. So if you can imagine reintegration in the health aspect, whether it's mental or even job training, hands on for students that are trying to get educated, there's just a lot of potential here. So I say all this because I'm going to a city council meeting in a few weeks and I got confirmed. And dude, a few days ago, I was like, make me an MLK speech in the vein of, well, I was using AI to make me a super compelling speech for city council in the vein of Martin Luther King. And I was like, oh my God, like I was getting choked up and emotional. Like heart was dropping multiple times because I could just imagine myself in this scenario saying these things. And it, dude, it really puts in perspective. There's no one was like this guy. Not to go off on a tangent here, but oh my God.
Yeah.
Like the way this man spoke was amazing. Like there's no one that's come close since then. Let's just put it like that. Just
I
absolutely
I
profound.
agree. You know, it's funny. The night before he died, he gave this amazing speech. There was a strike. There was a sanitation strike um, in Tennessee, and he gave this speech. I may not make it with you to the promised land. I mean, it was very prophetic, and
Wow.
yeah, and a lot of people don't know about that. You know, to plug my book, there's a tortoise in my hair, Journey of Spirit. There's a passage here where I examined Dr. King because he was a hero of mine, and that speech he gave, saying that he may not make it with everybody
Wow.
else to the promised land, and the next day he gets assassinated. But it's funny you brought him up because he's been a long standing hero of mine for a long time. Um,
But that's interesting that who comes to mind when you're like, make a profound speech? Who else actually comes to mind? Can you think of anyone?
uh, hey, it's also interesting because yeah, I've had this connection. I've had this connection to Dr. King. As it turns out, when I lived in Newark, um, my rabbi was one of Dr. King's best friends. So my rabbi was from Germany, and he fought Hitler in the 30s. And when he
Whoa.
realized he couldn't do anything, he came to Newark, New Jersey, and set up shop. But he became really good friends with Dr. King. A lot of people don't notice when Dr. King gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech on August 28th, 1963, on the March on Washington. It was my rabbi who gave a speech, and the next speaker was Dr. King. So when I met John Lewis, the great civil rights and congressman, and he was, I told him about our connection. And I also told him I had been connected to Emmett Till, and I had written some stuff about Emmett Till, like 25 years ago. And when I told John Lewis about the connection I had with Dr. King and the speech in the March on Washington, he grabbed my hands and he held my hands really tight. And somebody took a picture. And to me, that was so great because John Lewis, another hero of mine and the work he's done. And here I am telling him how we're connected, and he's holding down to my hands. And these are like full circle moments of life.
Damn.
It's funny that you brought that up because yes, Joe, what an amazing, passionate speaker. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's almost like in riddles. Like he almost speaks backwards in a sense, like the writing. Like you don't even have to talk like that. You could get your point across much more simple than that. But he puts it into poetic form. It's
Really,
mind blowing.
really. I
Yeah.
mean, saying that he may not make it to the promised land, and the next day, I mean that was riddles, and it's powerful. Yeah. Um, you've done a lot of, and this is fascinating too. You do and you're doing a lot of work with research on food access and student hunger initiatives. Paint a picture of that because I think 99.9% of us here in America have no clue just how bad student hunger is on college campuses.
Yeah, I'm not exaggerating when I say it's a silent crisis. That if you can imagine somebody being hungry and they're embarrassed, how does that feel? Right? It's kind of it's kind of dehumanizing. So I went in as a food access researcher, and what's interesting coming back to AI a little bit was people are reluctant to accept what this AI gives you immediately. So you can come to conclusions within 5 minutes of our research, but in the next 2 months, we're going to have to test it all. And then we'll realize, oh, you were right. I didn't know that. So my point to say that is people are super reluctant to trust what it's giving us. And the entire point of AI is to speed up the decision making. But because of all the bureaucracy and the red tape and older people, which I'm glad you're not reluctant to trust, like older people who are very like adamant about, I want to take my own notes. I'm not going to trust anything if a human wasn't there. They're pushing back and they're making us fall further behind because they're completely defeating the purpose of why this was invented.
Yeah.
So I'm only bringing that up because I've dealt with the pushback so long of telling me, we don't know, we're not sure. And then months later, I'm just scratching my head like, are y'all going to tell me I was right? Or did you not notice that I was right because I said this? So, my point being high food insecurity, 40% of college students, 40%, that's a huge number. And the things that I came in to do was we tested taking food as groceries to students in their classrooms. That sounds great, right? It sounds cool. But when you imagine a kid carrying home very heavy bags, it's a turn off. There, if you can imagine me giving a bag to a kid and I'm smiling and they're like, I'm good, I'm fine. It's to me that also hurts my feelings because I know they can use it, but they don't want to carry this home or they don't want to put it in their backpack. So there's, like I'm saying, a dehumanizing, there's the stigma aspect of needing help, of wanting to ask for help. It's not cool to need food, right? For example. And my point being is like the ramifications are ridiculous. The poor academic aspect, the mental health aspect, and underused SNAP, which is the food benefits, they're not even set up correctly because there's so many more people that should be having access to it. For example, like if I'm eligible for the Pell Grant, that should automatically imply that I need help. But that's not how the system works. And there's like even though they have expedited versions to access to the food, there's still so much red tape and how many hours do you have? And are you make sure that you're enrolled in? And there's been changes recently, like in the last few weeks, actually, to like change the eligibility aspect. And I'm actually hopeful that my research had something to do with it because I've sent some very angry emails. When I was not able to get a hold of food, I located the actual codes that they needed to change within the SNAP regulations to make me eligible. And then
Well,
I said, I know that I'm not the only person that's suffering from this, and this
well,
is the specific reason. So I have some hope that change something. But on the aspect of Texas school finance, the inequality, the inequity aspect, the reliance on property taxes and the inflation impacts, it is insane. Like we act like we need vouchers and we try to give them to the super rich schools. It's on another level of divided in Austin. And I'm sure it's much worse in other states. This is just one example. And the real solution is just to boost funding, right? Like target investments in the low income areas and then hopefully enforce accountability. But we have yet to see that. It remains to be seen.
so this is so rampant, and what you just said. By the way, I've been taking notes on you. I'm taking notes as you're talking, and I'm sitting here taking notes. But I wrote down. To me, that just blew me away. 40% of college students are food insecure. Wow. And before we went on air, I told you another amazing statistic. when I started my journalism career 12, 13 years ago, I did homelessness and then I did hunger. And so I spent literally a week back and forth at the food bank here, one of the big food banks, learning about the whole process and everything they do. It was so overwhelming to me, a suburban guy. This stuff is so remote from me. But and then I took courses and went to lectures and panels. And the thing my great takeaway from spending 12 hours at an all day event was this and I mentioned this to you, and this just blew me away, and I'm still digesting it all these years later. That 1980, there were 45 food pantries in America, and today there's 45,000,
Yep.
if not more.
And the crazy idea is that we made one of those too, right? And we would take pictures of it and see, is anyone taking from it? Well, maybe the QR code isn't big enough. And it turned into, well, kids are just taking the food and they're not scanning what they're taking. So there's like, we need to come up with more efficient systems for this to begin with. And another idea, just to keep going on what I was working on a little bit, we were doing food drives. I was working with the Texas Central Food Bank. I had a $30,000 grant that we had to manage,
Wow.
and that lasted for a few months. And we did we did farmers markets where kids would come. We'd have like the restaurant host. And what we learned from that was that they want food that's already made and ready to go. They don't want canned foods. It's in a package. They don't want bags of nuts. Like, give me something hot on my way to class that's convenient. And that's, you would think it's common sense, right? Like, you would think that the schools would just have food trucks
Yeah,
like everywhere, all over, but
right.
it's not that easy. And the other solution I had come up with was I was having meetings with locker companies who are trying to reinvent like food lockers, right? Like it could be heated or it could be cooled. It can be a room temp. Like, so that's the aspect is you put locks on it. So I'm trying to take it to another level. Well, how do we keep track of the type of food that they're getting? Can we get that data? Because then you can get partnerships with companies who might give you the food if they know that, it's popular amongst them. So just new innovative ideas in terms of like, well, we don't even know what they actually like, and we're just kind of throwing things out there. So we need ways to track this to begin with. The other thing, I just lost it. It'll come back to me. But yeah, on student hunger, any thoughts on that?
Okay. Wow. Wow. And I spent a lot of time on Rutgers campus. I wound up teaching a few years ago there. And
Just
yeah,
remembered.
yes.
Just the most vivid image. If you can imagine families, this is for the school. Think about it. We're doing this for students, but the neighborhoods are so desperate that they are turning up. We have families walking miles, walking, not driving, right? Like we have drive-throughs for this, but families are walking with their children just to pick up food and walk miles back home. So it paints this crazy image as I'm doing the work. You can imagine my emotions, whether I'm loading up a car, whether I'm directing cars, or have to turn someone away like, sorry, we're out of food for the day. That's the worst feeling too. So as much help as I am doing, I still have to like see the worst of it at the same time.
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
By the way,
As an empath, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
overwhelming. Wow. We got to take a break for a second, and I want to go off topic. I have a bunch of cute little one-word answers. I like to
Go
throw.
for it.
Yeah, I'm going to go for it, and you don't have to answer it. You can come up with a couple different answers, but first, little brain teaser. Excluding family or friends, uh, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Ooh, living or dead?
Yeah,
Michael Jackson for sure.
great answer. Great answer. That's perfect. 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 I like that question. I borrowed it from a great journalist. It's kind of provocative, but great answer. Absolutely great answer. There is no answer. I mean, it's great. Okay.
Or or Terrence McKenna. That's my other one.
Okay. I'm not familiar with.
He's a psychonaut kind of experience on his consciousness with mushrooms and stuff.
Oh, okay. But I've done. I work with and I'm friendly with a mushroom guy. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, his name is Gaetano Lardieri, and he and I have become special friends from LinkedIn. You know,
Wow.
from
Most
LinkedIn,
unexpected.
and we've gone on. We've gone to seminars together and lectures together, and he's like a brother. And it's been a great friendship over the last 3, 4 years, born out of. So he's a really I gotta actually hook the two of you guys together because really uh, he's come up with he he's come up with a lot of different things. He's working. He did a lot to get marijuana legalized here in New Jersey when the
Wow.
when it went on the referendum, and now he's working, and he's got different companies and doing research and with mushrooms, ayahuasca, all that kind of stuff, and he also pioneered. It was kind of funny, some kind of a pill that an astronaut takes. So when an astronaut goes
Interesting.
up there, and the pill is to prevent uh, uh, damage from bad rays that are floating around. Your
Whoa.
yeah. But as I joke to him, there's not a big market for that.
I'd be so skeptical. I'm like, how many people have you tried this on?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big market for. Although there's a couple astronauts who are stuck up there for like 6 months,
Oh
whatever.
yeah, I forgot about them.
Yeah, but I'm gonna connect the two of you guys because there's good chemistry there. Anyway,
That'd be cool. That'd be
back
cool.
to work. Um, you have something you started called Dreams Over Dollars. Talk about that. I know you deal with affordable housing and social betterment. Talk a little bit about that. And this is all part of the Enigma word that I
Yeah.
give you.
So Dreams Over Dollars was named after my first album in 2012. 10 years later, I made my nonprofit 2022, a couple years after I formalized my actual business, Catt. So research, urban development, it's a nonprofit, it's a whole philosophy as well. So I tried to encompass and broadly, well, that's why I trademarked the idea, right? The actual phrase is because I actually live by this. And to be honest, I should be asking myself how that aligns before I make big decisions. I've been thinking about that recently, but I think it's just so accustomed to my subconscious that I do what's in the best interest for the brand first and foremost all the time. But yeah, that kind of just the philosophy really does speak for itself. And it's kind of just the same thing as More Than Rich, if you think about it. It's just another extension of it. And they're two different brands. More Than Rich is just a subsidiary under Dreams Over Dollars. But yeah, Dreams Over Dollars is the main umbrella, as if you want to imagine it
Okay,
that way.
okay, okay. Um, you briefly mentioned AI and in some profound ways. And I mentioned to you, I've been fascinated by AI, and I signed up for a few different AI programs. And even though I'm an older guy, messing around in my septuagenarian years, I've hooked on and began really using AI. Like the other day, this is so interesting. Uh, um, I have AFib, and I'm going to start doing a whole bunch of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has AFib. I have AFib, and I was given I had to go in the hospital last week for 4 days. They gave me
Oh,
this new drug, but it's so strong and it can kill you. So
wow.
yeah, isn't it nice? Well,
Damn.
you got to go in a hospital for 4 days. It could kill you, but at least you'll be in a hospital. They'll be able to help you. But it's really interesting. And again, this is an AI story, so it's really interesting. So they monitor me every 2 hours with EKG and with bad reactions and stuff. Um, and being a former pharmacist, I'm always aware of drugs and anyway, I also had some eye problems, and I was using some eye drops because I had some surgery a couple of weeks ago on my eye. Everything's fine now.
Nice.
Yeah, there's an antibiotic they were giving me for my eye, and then with the drug the new drug I was taking, there was a little blurb. There was a little blurb about an antibiotic you can't take with this drug because it'll kill you.
Wow.
Yeah. So the other night, Joe, I went to AI and I said, I'm taking this drug, and I also
Interactions. Give me the interactions.
yeah, and I also use this eye drop, and it's an eye drop. It's not going into my belly. Can I take the two? And AI said, absolutely not. Now, who would have ever imagined
Wow.
an eye drop sneaking through that little hole in your eye and going down and killing you? So
That's a good point.
that's the power of AI.
To save your life.
Correct. That's the power. And nobody under the sun, no doctor really would say, hey, don't use eye drops that have an antibiotic in it.
That is scary.
Scary stuff. But that's part of the modern day life that you have these tools. So talk about just some some overview thoughts on AI and technology.
Man, this is the one where I could talk for hours because I've made so many custom GPTs. Like I've made podcast description generators where I just upload a paragraph and it's making the description, it's making the entire the title, the tags, the video tags, all from just one little upload copy paste.
Wow.
I've done that with grant writing. I've made grant writer GPTs, and it's just like, all right, what are your goals? What are you targeting? It simplifies the process.
Wow.
I've done it with the I Ching. So if you want to like roll the dice on need a question answered, I made a virtual version of it. Um, Trying to think of what else. Oh, YouTube video summarizers. So if I wanted, for example, I'm like always studying myself and how I can improve. So if I did this interview and the video is out, I would grab the link, throw it into GPT. All right, tell me my speaking style. How can I improve? Can you compare this to anybody else? And just really
Wow.
dissect, yeah, just to learn about myself. If there's anything profound or what stuck out, you can just really get to the nitty gritty. But like you said, the doctor part, I have one that basically gives me it's called Doctor Expert, and it gives me a percentage of what it most likely is, and then all the other things that it could be, and then the recommendations, and then it'll say, obviously, go see a doctor. This isn't to be trusted because you don't want it to be the end all. But a music teacher, I have one for research. Excel sheets. I can like literally populate tons of Excel sheets with all the with all the data within seconds. I've gotten so many business plans that I'm trying to create just for this aspect. This is why I say I can develop rapid proposals. If somebody has a business plan, oh, here it is, here's all the numbers, I crunched it all now. My idea is to simplify it so all you have to do is go find the money. Go show this idea to your investor. Does it work? That's kind of where my urban development skills come into play with all this. But and then reverse engineering everything, right? So I could literally just be like, what are the biggest housing issues? Okay, now what are the most common models of homes that would work for this? Now let's go into the affordability aspect. Who can make modular? So it's really all about asking questions. And the thing that I want to do is be able to train cities and for them to call me in so I could be like, look, I'm going to show you guys and you can just ask me anything off the top. We're going to invent a whole project right here together. That would be the perfect scenario where I can just come in and everyone can watch how I use the product because it's truly all about the questions you ask. What do you want to know? And the other thing is, this is where it comes super in handy because you can imagine I'm not well versed in every industry, but AI can tell me the lingo that I need to know to speak to a venture capitalist because I
Wow.
have no idea how to navigate those meetings or those conversations. And I'm being transparent. And it can even tell me how to be transparent and upfront. And if that's even a good idea to negotiate my terms. And are these even good terms? Should I ask for more or less? This is where I'm at in the development stage of my product. So it's really, if you know how to use it, it is life changing for sure. Absolutely.
Interesting. You just you just said something really profound. If you know how to use it, and doing all the AI that I do, I don't do anywhere near what you do, but um, there's a whole new industry being born. There's a whole new career, rather. It's a prompt engineer. A prompt engineer is asking AI the right question to get the right answer. and that's you just said it. And I was watching some talk show, and they were saying the hottest new career is a prompt engineer, knowing how to ask AI to get you the right answer that you're looking for. And you
Yep.
just said that. So
But
it's like, wow.
the thing is, it's not at the level where you can just be like, make this code and make it do, like, you still have to know what you're doing and what you're asking. But if you don't know, that's where reverse engineering comes into handy, where you start at the very end. Well, what does that mean? How do you get that from that and go backwards? Because most people are just like, enter, give me option, okay, copy, paste. It's not how it should be. You really have to find the end. What's the end goal? Go backwards from there, and you'll learn a lot in the process too, because you can imagine how much I read now because I'm using AI all the time, and even though it speaks to me, my reading's improved, right? The way I make business plans is improved because I'm do it so often, so I'm learning the process, the repetitive aspects just getting ingrained in my brain. So I would argue that although people belittle it in the sense of it's doing everything for you, I'm doing it so often that I'm memorizing things. I'm knowing the steps now. I can actually maneuver in the real world. It's interesting.
It's very interesting. You really nailed this whole prompt engineer thing. Fascinating, really fascinating. It's funny. I was with a few weeks ago, a long story. I was with a very accomplished journalist, TV journalist, and I had a chance to talk to him, and I actually interviewed his daughter some years ago. His daughter was in a rock band, and it was like reverse. I'm interviewing, the reporters, but we talked a little bit about AI, and we didn't have much time to talk because a whole bunch of people wanted to talk to him. But I said, as a journalist and writing up stories, what's AI gonna do for me in a couple of years? He said it's going to eliminate, because in 3 or 4 years, AI will be so sophisticated, it'll take your essence, Calvin, and your essence, and it'll be able to
Love it.
write an article with your essence.
Take you to it. I'll take it deeper than that.
Take it.
We're most likely life is going to get a lot easier for everybody. That's my prediction. That whether it's cost of living, how to do things, just existing, right? We won't have to work as hard. There's been announcements of having 3.5 days a week in the future, and I can definitely see that. Um, but I think I really want to like come back to your last question before I went into that. Remember what you were saying last?
Uh, what about AI?
The personality part. Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, at this very moment, I have an AI that's called reflective AI. And what it's done is it's basically from memory, all the memory that I've given it, I'll be like, based on everything you know about me, how do I act or how do you perceive me from the outside looking in? And this is the type of person you are, this is how you speak, blah, blah, this is the way you're interested in these things. And I'm like, now, how do I speak? Can you turn this into how do you compare it to somebody else? It's giving me all these types of authors and things. Okay, well, what's signature or unique about me? And now you're turning all this into instructions. This is looking at you and how you behave and function. Now program that into the bot. So I have an AI that basically whatever I upload or tell it, I already have some prompt or some story. Okay, put this into my words. Now I'm speaking. If I was telling the story, how would it be super relatable? Because that's how I normally speak. I tie in these grand ideas. I try to combine the idealistic with the pragmatic. So sometimes I try to bring metaphors and analogies and make it relatable. So it'll do all those things. It knows how I speak. It's very interesting.
Very. Wow. Boy, talk about George Orwell, 1984.
But I
Uh,
mean, you could probably do it too. I promise. If you uploaded your podcast into GPT and you're just getting all the commonalities of how you think, how you speak, and your speech patterns, you could easily program your GPT.
I'm
You
gonna,
you you just need enough content on the internet
yeah, I'm just gonna, we'll talk more about that off topic, and you can kind of guide me
for
to
sure.
enter a brave new world.
Or because you've done plenty of writing, right? So that's
Yeah, I've
even
done it.
easier.
My writing's out there, you
That's
know.
even easier. Yeah, you got all your references in your pieces. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Um, I just need, I'm just one guy. I'm so spread out, I'm
I mean,
trying
I'll
to,
definitely help. That's not hard. I can help with that.
that'd be great. just to explore a whole new world. Off topic, take a deep breath. Off topic. Uh, f- uh, Favorite actors, favorite movies.
Ooh. Um, wow, Men in Black came to mind for some
Okay,
reason. Um, Shoot. I think Keanu Reeves is awesome for
okay,
sure. Wow. It's funny because I just haven't been watching movies in a while, I guess.
that's
I've kind of gotten away from it.
that's
That's a
okay.
hard question.
That no, that's
It,
fine.
if it comes to me, I'll be thinking about it. I'll
That's
blurt it
fine.
out.
We'll kind of move on. By the way, I have a great AI anecdotal story for you. In the mid '60s, the movie 2001 came out. You may or may not be familiar with it. It was
The
Stanley.
Odyssey?
Yep, yep. Space Odyssey. Stanley Kubrick directed it, and I don't think enough attention is paid to that in discussions about AI. But that was mid '60s, and you had a computer on a spaceship called HAL that decided to take over the spaceship. And man, that's just pure AI. And this is a million years before even before it was even in our consciousness that happened. Um, I've been fascinated by the whole thing. So when I first started my journalism, I got involved with Singularity and Ray Kurzweil, and he became a little bit of a hero to me. And I liked Ray Kurzweil for a whole bunch of reasons because he was brilliant, and he has about 50
Yep.
honorary PhDs. And the other thing I liked about him, we talked about this before we went on air. I take 60 supplements a day, and he was taking 160
Oh my gosh.
a day because he
Wow.
was diabetic and stuff. But and he had this Singularity University, and he would have these 3-day conferences every couple of years. He did one in California where he's based, and he did one up at Harvard. And I wanted to go to that as I was beginning my journalism career, but it was not I just didn't have the funds to do that. And then 2 years later, it came to New York. The reason why I'm telling you this, it's an AI. It came to New York, and I was a full-fledged journalist. I got a press pass. God, I love press passes. You
Wow.
can get a press pass.
Yeah.
I got a press pass, and so I went for 3 days, for free, and I got a chance to talk to Ray Kurzweil. But he brought in about 30 or 40 scientists from all over the world involved the definition of singularity is at some point in the very near future, man and machine are going to become one, which is happening. And
Yeah, you made me think of that other movie. It was like it started with an M. Machina. I forgot what it was called. Ex
oh,
Machina. Ex Machina.
okay.
You remember that one?
No, I don't know that.
So yeah, this guy creates an AI robot and she lives in the house with him. I remember that one was like super mind blowing.
Wow.
The other one that scared me as a kid was the movie actually called AI. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, Steven Spielberg.
Oh my
Yeah,
dude.
it's Spielberg.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
so traumatized because like the mom like leaves this kid in a forest and he's like chasing after the car. You know, remember that scene? And he like, or at the bottom of the pool, he's like drowning, but they're just like dismissive of him. They don't pay attention. It's very mind blowing. Like the kid's looking to be wanted, and he's an AI
Yeah. Hey, uh,
ahead of its time.
way ahead of its time, but not so much anymore. But because that stuff. But one of the speakers uh, uh, that Kurzweil brought in was from Moscow, and he was working. And I thought this was so fascinating. And you know who else was there? Ken Jennings, the guy who won several million dollars in Jeopardy, who was brilliant.
Mhm.
And right after that, Ken Jennings challenged IBM's computer to a game of Jeopardy to see who was smarter, the human or the machine. I think the machine won. And Ken Jennings actually now hosts Jeopardy. But they had this Russian scientist who said in 30 years, they're going to be able to take this and like using a USB thing, take a wire, put it into my head, and transfer this to an Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator cyborg.
I honestly think it's sooner than that.
Yeah.
I think it's a third of the time for
And
sure.
therefore giving me and Elon Musk, uh, uh, because who am I? Well, this is just a body, but this is my essence. So being able to take this and put it into a non-destructible, replaceable cyber, scary stuff. Who's going to be able to afford that? Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Warren Buffett, who,
I think it's only scary because the first person that has it is going to have all the knowledge.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
scary, scary, scary stuff. And there's so many ethics that come into it, but it's all
true.
fascinating stuff. All right, back to work. This fascinates me uh, because I don't champion this stuff, but I'm so aware of global food supply and climate change and your impressions of that. And I'm reaching down here. I've been, listen, I mentioned I've been a climate person for a long time, since April 22nd, 1970, when I stopped eating meat. Uh, 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 but I interviewed recently the author of Our Changing Menu, written by Dr. Michael Hoffman, a professor emeritus at Cornell. He's been studying changing food things, the food supply, and this is about a scary. It's as real. It's a wonderful book, Our Changing Menu, because you learn about coffee and chocolate and rice, even scotch that's stored in vats in Scotland because the temperature is creeping up. Its stuff's evaporating. So,
Wow.
oh yeah, you can't believe the depth.
Well, coffee and chocolate I know is really bad, like how
Really
we get it,
bad,
right?
really bad. And rice, and just food after. I mean, even blueberries, which I love, they're healthy. I don't know if it's Ecuador, but where they have a huge, maybe it's Peru, but huge amounts of blueberries come there. But and the blueberries get watered by melting glaciers, so the water runs off, and but what's happened, the glaciers are disappearing.
Oh
So there's
no.
no more running water coming down the mountain to water the blueberries. So they're going to disappear. So you're going to have all this stuff. I mean, chocolate is a killer, and a lot of chocolate comes from Western Africa, which is terrible droughts, and rice, which is a staple all around the world, such an important food staple, disappearing a bit. So your take on food supplies and climate and stuff.
So I was working on a project. I'm still kind of working on it. It's just where I can build it. I have a senator support to build a sustainable stadium, and it was originally going to be designed by Perkins and Will, which is this renowned architectural firm. And of course, the problem I have with everything is just location. Where are we going to do it? So the county is super into it. This was going to be built in the valley, Rio Grande Valley, where I'm from. But the issue is that it's such a massive project that there's a lot of hesitancy. So Tanzania, they need help to grow their rice. And the idea was that they were seeking an investor. So my immediate reaction was, well, I'm trying to build this sustainable stadium to grow food. Maybe we can somehow import their products over here. This was a grand idea at first. Like this, I got a lot of traction, a lot of support, and it was going really well. But it's just the location. It's in such a small town that I'm trying to like literally change the entire landscape that this would not be able to support it. Like the stadium costs more than their actual income for the city, is my point. So realistically, I'm looking at other places, other states, and I think Arizona actually might be a better fit for this. But my point is, Just Vertical is a great company that they're reusing 95% of the water in terms of efficiency and recycling it. And it's a hydroponic growing system where they grow upwards.
Uh-huh.
It's really amazing. Like if you check them out, they got all their seeds on their site, how it works. But long story short, for a quarter million, they'll come and set up your 500 square foot spot. And you could be growing food really efficiently. And the idea is that we could have that all set up in a stadium where it's a living laboratory. It's not just entertainment. I'm always trying to combine education with entertainment? How do we make it fun? How do we make sure this is always making money and it's not just like for shows or concerts or football games and things like that? So, yeah, just trying to tie in the STEM aspect and the education, because this is a huge opportunity, whether it's for international trade. This would have been like a big deal between like a country and a county that's like unheard of. So I try to imagine these huge scenarios, the long-term goals of what it could actually shift or change in the entire landscape. Like, imagine you're empowering a country to grow their own food, to not be reliant on you anymore. That's all they're asking. They're not asking for anything else. They just want to eat to live. So, yeah, one of the things that really pulled at my heartstrings was the fact that women can't even get an education because they don't have the necessities or necessary toiletries. So if you can imagine, like, someone's on their period and bleeding out in class is an embarrassing thing. So they just don't go to school. They just don't get an education. And that was like mind blowing. I just couldn't believe that that would hold somebody back. Anyways, it's just one little detail, and I know it doesn't have everything to do with food supply, but it just goes to show like the ripple effects of not having, and how small and basic the things that we take for granted are, you know? And that's the long story of how I feel on the world food supply. I think we just need to be able to empower other countries to be able to take care of themselves instead of having everyone rely on us or their surroundings. But easier said than done, obviously.
Really easier said than done. And I listen. I look at the world and I look at the wars going on, and I'm trying to say, when are we going to snap out of it? There was a great scene in one of my favorite movies, Moonstruck, where
Never
Cher,
seen.
oh, great movie. Cher slaps Nicolas Cage right in the face and tells him, snap out of it. I mean, this is out of context. So I want the world to be slapped in the face to realize, stop making wars, stop making bigger bombs and better ICBMs, and concentrate on the things that will either keep us as a species or not. Where with each passing day, there are more examples of climate change and terrible hurricanes and droughts and fires. I mean, it's almost biblical. It's almost like Ghostbusters. It's like biblical in proportion. And when are we going to realize that there's so many problems we have? The whole food thing. We're going to have 400 million people displaced in the next 20 or 25 years by rising coastline. I joke, I live 22 miles from the Atlantic Ocean, and I get real glib, and I joke that uh, soon I'm going to have oceanfront property, and my house is going to be worth $5 million for 2 weeks, and then it'll get washed away. But for 2 weeks, I'm going to be a multimillionaire. Funny stuff.
Might
But
as well get your loan in that time period, borrow
yeah,
against
yeah,
it.
just 2 weeks, boom, and then of course my house will wash away. But we really, as a species, and that's why I call my this podcast "Conversations with Calvin," we the species, because we are one species, and if we don't snap out of it, I often say that looking at that movie War of the Worlds that came out in the 50s, spaceships invading. I often say, and it's funny, I went to the audition for Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise,
Mhm.
and they called me
Wow,
twice.
I was gonna bring that movie up earlier. That's funny.
That,
It, it was a very, very hype moment in film industry time. That was like very hype, that
yeah,
movie.
yeah. As a joke, I crashed a movie a couple of years before that. I was in a movie with Meryl Streep, and
What?
yeah, yeah, William Hurt.
Small detail.
Yeah, a small little detail. It was one of the great things that I've ever accomplished. It's a long story, but I was
That's
in.
not. Is
I was
that
in.
on your resume, sir? Are you
It's
holding
not.
out?
It's not. I left that out. But and when I do write a little bit of a press release, I do write that I was in a movie with Meryl Streep. I was in a
I need to
Christmas scene.
see the IMDb. I need to see that.
And so I've been in that, and I did another movie.
Did they pay you, or were you like an extra?
I snuck.
That
I,
is funny.
I went to see, my sister and I went to, we heard about this movie, One True Thing. William Hurt, Renee Zellweger, Meryl Streep, and we went to just watch them film it. And it was in one of my hometowns, Maplewood, New Jersey. It was 1998, 97. So we just went to watch them film it, and it was a million, they had put on fake storefronts and it was Maplewood, New Jersey. I mean, it was really fun, but you couldn't get within 2 blocks of where they were doing the shooting. And then all of a sudden the cop said, "Hey, they're letting people get a slice of pizza or a container of milk if you want to walk on a set." So my sister and I went and we sat down at a little pizza place while nothing was going on. It was November '97. It was cold. And my sister and I ate a slice of pizza for like an hour and a half, just one slice. She had half, I had half. And then all of a sudden they were getting ready to film. And you see all the activity, and they had a machine that was making snow. It was really interesting. It was near the end of the movie. And so my sister and I went out just to kind of watch, just as curiosity. And I'm standing there underneath an old movie theater, the Maplewood Theater. It was real old. It was kind of like Art Deco. And I'm just watching everything going on. It was fascinating. And all of a sudden, you feel like there's somebody standing next to you. And I turned to look, and right next to me, next to my elbow, there is Meryl Streep and William Hurt and Renee Zellweger and the director, Carl Franklin. And I'm a little bit of a friendly guy. I turned to Mel Streep, and I didn't, I didn't get all verklempt and choked up. I started talking to her, telling her how much I admired her movies and stuff. And while I was talking to her, one of the production assistants saw me talking to her and assumed that I was part of that whole entourage.
Wow.
So he comes over to me and he says, "We need to place you now." So I gave my sister a shot in the ribs. I said, "Let's go. We're getting placed." He took us right onto the set, and then he asked, and then he
Love
asked,
it.
"You know everything you have to say and do?" And the scene was she was dying in the movie, and they honored her and they brought her up and to the mayor, everybody sang Silent Night and turned on the Christmas tree lights and stuff, and he explained everything you have to say and do, and then he walked away. And it's funny because you see this in the movie, Joe. So I'm in the back, and I said to my sister, I said, we're going to be in a movie, but we're already in the back. I'm going up front. So you actually see me in the movie, kind of worming my way up front, and I'm 6'5" and I'm big, and I work my way right up front, and uh, and I'm in the movie. Uh, and it's funny because when my son was dating his wife, and they'd only been together a month or two, she was home one day, and she had met me 3 or 4 times. She was home one day and she was watching this movie, One True Thing, and she picked up the phone and she called my son. Said, "Hey, I'm watching this movie, and it's so funny because there's a guy out here who looks just like your dad." And my son said, "It is my dad."
Wow, that
Funny
is
stuff.
wild.
Funny
That is so
stuff.
wild.
Yeah.
You ever think about how you could have just ran off with an actor career after that moment?
Hey, and that's why I auditioned. I went down to audition for Water Worlds with Tom Cruise and Spielberg. I auditioned, and a week later, 2 weeks later, they called me, and I chickened out.
What?
Yeah, I chickened out.
What?
It was an 8 day
What,
shoot, and
what was the role?
the role, I didn't even know. It was an extra. I wasn't, it was an
I
extra.
can't
The pay
believe
was
this.
pretty good. It was $100 a day, 8 days. But I chickened out because it was an 8 day shoot and I was still selling eyeglasses and I didn't know if I could take off 8 days like that. So I chickened out and I said, "Hey, if something else comes up, call me." And a few days later, they called me again. "We have something else for you." And then I got real stupid. And I got real stupid and I should have jumped at the opportunity, but I didn't. But I said to her, because I figured they're calling me now twice. So I said, "Listen, I'll do it, but I want a guarantee of screen time." At, at
Wow.
which time she said to me, "We don't even give that to Tom Cruise." So
Wow.
I didn't do it. And one of the
Yeah, yeah.
great mistakes of my life, because I would have been in the movie, you know.
But I get you. You thought you had a little leverage in that moment.
Yeah, I felt I had the power and the leverage. They wanted me. I was 6'5". I don't know, but
I was 6'5".
I
I
blew it.
love it. I love it.
My son still to this day, whenever something comes up and I have to make a decision, my son says, "Remember War of the Worlds? You could have been in the movie."
Timeline split.
Yes. So, the last thing I wanted, we have a bunch more things, but we're going to save that for next time. But the last thing I want to talk about seriously is More Than Rich. Talk about your podcast, your history. I know that you're in your third season. You've done this season. I think my particular one was season three, episode 46. Talk about More Than Rich, because there are things more than money that you talk about, and I think this is an amazing podcast because you put so much into it and the research. So talk about More Than Rich.
So about 3 or 4 years ago, I was transitioning into how do I turn this into a media company? Because I really follow Gary Vee and I totally believe everything's going to transition to whether it's like corporations next year. I can see Walmart doing live in their stores. I think everything's about to become social media influenced even more so on another level. So things shifting in terms of the power dynamics, right? Artists can't just be artists anymore. And that was where I was coming in terms of like, how do I interview people? How do I give other people the spotlight? And it's not just a way to grow your brand. Like you're genuinely learning about all these different lifestyles that may be in the same area that you're in, or whether it's industries, because I'm so crossed into multiple industries, and that's how you innovate. You cross industries, you combine ideas, and you get something new. Sometimes you take things that were working, things that were ahead of their time, things that didn't work, and you consolidate and you combine ideas. So my point being is that was the idea of I need to get away from just being an artist. How do I really extrapolate my resources, my network, all that I know, and then broaden my impact? And the only way to really do that is through media, not just through music, to visually be in front of people, to entertain them beyond. I hate to say the word entertainment because that's kind of the deterrent, right? Like, I don't want to say like a clown or a joker on camera because I really don't even like being on camera to begin with. It's just a byproduct of what I have to do every day, especially if I want to be successful, if I want to grow my brand. I just know what comes with it. So my point is I had to start to lean into my strengths, which is like, all right, well, people seem to like gravitate towards what you say, or they care about it, or maybe they can resonate. So how do I capitalize? How do I interview people, whether they're in my industry or not, and just platforming people that wouldn't have a voice otherwise? Because I think that comes back into the service to others as well, right? Whether you're learning about people's stories and how it can contribute to the grand scheme of the world, I think this is where the future of all media is headed for creators, to empower ourselves to be our own independent journalists and to tell our own stories from the inside out.
Great. And so people can find your on YouTube, More Than Rich, and I'll
Yep.
have the address. Um, so I'm just showing the logo again, which is on your hat. It was a great podcast, and I totally thoroughly enjoyed my time, and I'm so glad the forces of the universe got us together, and I kind of marvel at that because this is a good place to kind of sign off now, and there's more things to talk about, and hopefully you'll come back because a million, and we could, God, we could just BS here and go off on tangents, and that's great, Joe. Truly, truly, truly. So, officially welcoming you back. Come back with the panels. Hey, we'll do anything. We can both do anything. It's our world. I'm so thrilled that we spent this time together because I bring up that word enigma. The stuff you do is so critical and so special, and I feel special that you spent some time with me and we got a chance to do this stuff. So, merry, happy, healthy.
Thanksgiving.
Yep. Yep. Please come back to be continued. Don't leave. I'm just going to stop recording.